Get ready for the ultimate crochet surprise. This super easy crochet rose blanket turns into a bouquet. Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous, super easy, simplified crochet rose blanket. It has cute little roses and leaves around the edge, and then when you pick it up, it turns into an amazing crochet rose bouquet. The great thing about this pattern is it is worked in a spiral, so no joining and stepping up every round. You can literally just pop on a TV show or a podcast or a playlist and just start crocheting and just enjoy the relaxing part of crochet without the counting and the joining and the stepping up and all that. Just in a spiral until you run out of yarn or your center is the size you want it to be. Another great thing about this pattern is the center. It is just a perfect spot to poke in a couple fingers, just in any of those holes, and pull it up. For my big bouquet, this is 3 feet across from roses to roses. I used 300 grams for my white center. For this smaller sample, I used about 50 grams. So that's just regular size 4 worsted weight acrylic. And then I picked a soft green for my leaves, but you could also use a more vibrant green depending on what color palette you are using for your flowers. And for my flowers, I just picked some springtime summery colors that I had in my Yarnscape. Also just a variety of yarns. I used Savor, I used Favorite, I used Softly Baby, and I used Kenyan acrylic. So whatever size 4 weight yarn you have or you like the colors. Of course, you could also just do it with one color if that is what you would like. I used a 6mm crochet hook. You'll also need a needle for sewing together your flowers and tucking in your ends. If you're new to crochet, you can use a stitch marker and a pair of scissors. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. To start your blanket, there's 2 ways of doing it. You could do it with a chain 3 and a slip stitch to turn it into a ring or a magic ring. I'm going to show you how to do a magic ring. So just lay that tail over your non-dominant hand and hold it down on your ring finger. Wrap it around 2 fingers, making an X, and bring it around that 3rd finger, just holding it underneath your thumb. Turn your hand over and you will have a short strand and a long strand. Grab your crochet hook side facing down, slide it underneath the short strand, and on top of the long strand, drag that long strand under the short strand and point the hook towards yourself. Up on the fat part of your hook, release your thumb a little bit so that long strand can slide, and turn the hook so you can grab the long strand, pinch everything underneath your hook, turn your hook so it's facing down, and bring it through that loop. And there is your magic ring. And chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're going to do 1 treble crochet into the center of the ring, so going over that tail. Chain 1, and 1 more treble crochet. Our starting chain counts as a treble crochet and chain 1. We want a total of 10 of these treble crochets, including our chain, with a chain 1 in between. So chain 1 and treble crochet, chain 1 and treble crochet. You can pause the video and just keep working along, doing your treble crochets and chain 1. You want a total of 10, including this chain. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. So there is my 10 treble crochets, and after my 10th treble crochet, including my chain, so I've made 9 trebles, but I'm counting that chain as a treble crochet. I'm not doing a chain 1, so after your last treble crochet, no chaining. Pull that tail to shrink up your ring. And now we're going to slip stitch into this second chain right here. So we're skipping, this is our treble. We're skipping a chain and we're working into this second one here. So slip stitch into that second chain from the top, second chain from the top, slip stitch. So that's the center of our blanket. Chain 1, and into that very same stitch, with the very same chain, we're going to make 1 single crochet, 1 half double crochet, and 1 double crochet, all into that same spot, that same top of the chain right there. Chain 1, and into the top of our treble crochet right here, we're going to do 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, just like that. Chain 1, and into the next treble crochet, 3 double crochets. And we're going to do this all the way around. So 3 double crochets, chain 1, and into the next stitch, 3 double crochets. We're going to do that all the way around our circle. 3 double crochets and a chain 1, and then we're going to do our 3 double crochets into each of these stitches with a chain 1 in between. So you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets and a chain 1 into each of these stitches all the way around. There's my chain 1, and I'll meet you when we get back over here where we began. When you get closer to where we began, don't forget to work into the top of this treble crochet right there. So the top of each treble crochet gets those 3 double crochets and a chain 1. So don't forget this last one right here. And if I'm going too fast or too slow, you can click that gear on the video and speed me up or slow me down. And now you want to make sure you have 10 of these sets of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Our first one looks a little different because we did that single half and double crochet here. But that is our first set. So there is our 10. And now look for the top of that single crochet. So if you just separate that set of 3, so to slide your finger and thumb into that chain space, you will see your 3 stitches. So there's number 3, number 2, and here is number 1. We are going to be working right in to the top of that single crochet. And we're just going to be doing 2 double crochets to start. So right into the top of that single crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, all into the same stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Chain 1, and we're going to jump over to that next set of 3, and into our very first stitch, we're going to do 2 double crochets. So 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. And chain 1. And now we're jumping to our next set of 3. So our first stitch always gets an increase, so 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and 1 double crochet into the rest of the stitches in that set. So into the first stitch, 2 double crochets, and 1 double crochet into each of the next 2. There's 1 and 2. And we're going to do this all the way around. If you're new to crochet, we can also pop in a stitch marker where that funny first shell is or where our chain is. You just pop a stitch marker right into that chain space before we jumped up. So that's going to mark where our join is. It's also where our chain is. right here, that's our chain, but you can just pop a stitch marker so you can keep track of it. And then when we get to our chain spaces, we're always going to chain 1 and jump to the next set of 3. 2 double crochets into the first, 1 and 2, and 1 double crochet into the rest, 1 double crochet into each, and a chain 1 to get to the next set. So you can pause the video, keep working along, 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and 1 double crochet into each of the next, and a chain 1 to jump to the next set, all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started, right over here. When you get back to your stitch marker, we're just going to keep repeating the pattern now that we are working in a spiral. Don't worry about it being a little bit egg-shaped right now. It is going to sort itself out as we grow it. So into the very first stitch, we're going to always do 2 double crochets, so it increase into that first stitch of each of our sets, and then 1 double crochet into each of the rest. And as your circle grows, you're just going to have 1 extra stitch per set. So for this round now, we're going to have 3 double crochets like that, and it's just going to keep growing. So you can pause the video and just keep growing your circle until it is the size you want it to be. And each round is just going to be growing like this. So you're always going to be just making more of those 1 double crochet into each stitch until you get to that space. Just repeat this pattern around and around until your circle is the size you want it to be. And then meet me back a little bit before our stitch marker section. You could just pop this stitch marker up every few rows so you can see where it is. It's also right where our chain is here at the bottom, right before our chain. That line is where we started. So you can meet me back a few stitches before that join, and I'll just show you how to taper off and finish off your circle. So there is our 4 stitches before the space where we joined. Into the next 2 stitches, I'm going to do a half double crochet into each. Half double and half double. Into the next 2 stitches, I'm going to do a single crochet into each. So single crochet, and now into this little stitch, or that chain stitch on top of the space, I'm going to slip stitch right into that chain, slip stitch, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So there is your circle. Now we want to flip it over and sew in our tail on the outside, and also sew in our tail at the center for this magic ring. So go ahead, thread your needle, and to sew in your magic ring, we just want to go around in one direction, around that ring, and then we want to go back in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to go underneath the fat part of those stitches about 3 times, or I'm inserting my needle about 3 times just to get around that ring. And then back in the other direction. Just like that. Now we are ready to start the leaves. To start the leaves, grab your green color yarn. Get a loop of yarn, about a 4-inch tail. Insert your hook into the second stitch after any join, and pop a loop of the yarn on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Skip 2 stitches and working into the third, 1 single crochet, chain 3, skipping 2, and 1 single crochet into the third. So we're going to do this all the way around our circle. So chaining 3, skipping 2, and into the third, 1 single crochet. When you get to your chain space, the chain counts as a stitch, so we're going to count it. So 1 and 2, the third would be over here. So chaining 3, skipping 2, including the chain, and into the third, 1 single crochet. So you can pause the video, keep working around doing your chain 3, skip 2, and 1 single crochet all the way around your circle, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started, right over here. So when we get back to where we started, just keep doing that same chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch right into the legs of that join, right down here. I'm going to make that into our single crochet. So just pop your hook in and slip stitch, just like that. Now we're going to be working into our spaces for our leaves. So into the first space, we're just going to make 1 single crochet and chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Into the second chain, right here, we're going to slip stitch. So 1 slip stitch. Into the next chain, 1 single crochet. Into the next chain, 1 half double crochet. And into the last chain, 1 double crochet. Just like that. Now we're going to chain 1 and slip stitch into that same chain, just to build our little petal like that. And single crochet into the same space to finish off that leaf. Jumping to the next space, single crochet, chain 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Slip stitch into the second chain. Single crochet into the next. Then half double. Then double. Chain 1 and slip stitch into that same chain to pin it down. And single crochet into the same space to finish off that leaf. So we'll do that one more time together. Single crochet into the space, chain 5, slip stitch into the second chain, single crochet into the next, half double crochet into the next, double crochet into the last, chain 1 and slip stitch into that same chain, and single crochet into the same space. So you can pause the video and keep working around, making 1 leaf into each of these spaces all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started, right over here. When you get back to where we started, I'm just going to finish off that leaf with my single crochet to pin it down, and now we're just going to slip stitch right over into the bottom of that, our first leaf over there. We're just going to slip stitch into the bottom of it. So 1 little slip stitch and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up, your yarn through, snug that down, and you can go ahead and sew in those 2 green tails. And now we are ready to make the flowers. So grab the colors of yarn you're going to use for your flowers. And for our flowers, we're going to be working into these right here. We're going to be putting our hook in to that spot, or any spot, doesn't matter, wherever you're going to start. But just look for the front loop of the first row and the front loop of the row above, and we're going to be working in to both of those loops or into that spot. And then the back of our blanket is going to be just the nice green color. We're not going to see that flower yarn popping through. So insert your hook into the front loop of the first row and the front loop of the second row, right there, and grab your yarn. Leaving about a 7-inch tail, put a loop of your flower color on your hook and bring it through. Slip stitch with both strands to join and drop your tail, just holding it along the back of your work. And chain 14. 1, 2, 3, 13, and 14. Now into the third chain, right here, we're going to make 1 double crochet into the third chain. Into the next chain, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And now into each of the chains going down, 3 double crochets into each. So each chain gets 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into the next chain, 3 double crochets. So you can pause the video, just keep working down your chain, 3 double crochets into each, and I'll meet you when you get closer to where we began, right down here. So there we are at the bottom of our chain, and that first chain we made, we want to work into that with our last 3 double crochets, but we have to be a little careful where we're working in because we want to work into that bottom part, just to make sure it doesn't go down here. So just working in to that stitch, go into the bottom part of it to make sure you're stuck in that second chain, not that little slip stitch we did in the very beginning. So wrap your yarn, 3 double crochets into that fat chain, making sure it is not in between the legs of that first stitch. So 3 double crochets. This is going to hold our flower together. Really nice. So 3 double crochets, and now we're going to slip stitch in between those legs, right down in there. Just underneath that one strand is fine. Just like that, we're going to do a little slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn again, leaving about a 7 or 8-inch tail. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. Then this is going to roll up like that and we can just attach it. But what I like to do is leave them all kind of loose and get them all attached first and then come back and sew them all together. So we spend our time crocheting and then we spend our time with a needle and thread. So that's one where the post is. Now we're going to skip a post and work into that next space right here. So sliding a front loop from the first row and a front loop from the second row, we're going to put our flower right there. So grab your next color of yarn, again leaving a long tail so we can sew it together later. Bring your loop through, slip stitch with both strands to join, drop your tail holding it along the back of your work. And now we're going to do the exact same flower again. So chain 14. So there's my chain 14. Into the third, 1 double crochet. Into the third chain. Into the next chain, 2 double crochets. And into each chain all the way down, 3 double crochets into each. You can pause the video and just get this one done, 3 double crochets into each chain. Into that fat chain, we're going to go into the bottom of it to make sure it stays in that spot and doesn't sneak down to our legs of our first slip stitch. So 3 double crochets into that the fat chain. And now slip stitch into the legs. We're going to slip stitch down underneath that strand. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew that flower together later, about 8 inches. Pull it up, shrink it down, and move on to your next flower. So we did a post, we did in between a post, so we're going to do a post. So our next flower is going to be right here, just sliding that front loop of the first row and front loop of the second row onto your hook, and we're just going to do the same thing. So you can pause the video, keep working around, adding a flower to a post, adding a flower in front of a leaf, a post in front of a leaf, a post all the way around, and I'll meet you when you have all of your curly cute flowers on your blanket. Then when you have all of your little curly cues on and they're spaced out, this is a nice opportunity. Just make sure you have the colors in an order that you like if you're changing colors at all. So now we're ready to turn this into a rose. So go ahead and thread the last tail we had from that chain 1 and just let that hang out. We don't really need it right now, but we are going to unfold our flower a little bit. So that little center bud is in the middle, and then we're going to roll it up flat so that top edge is nice and flat. And then this little bit at the end, that's going to hold it all together. So just twist it around until it is a flat, almost flat flower shape. Take your needle and just turn it so we can see where that tail is coming from. We just want to poke our needle straight across, just where it is, through the center, out the other side, and just pulling it so that it's snug. I'm going to jump over a few stitches and come back through halfway on the flower, halfway up the flower. That way we know we're getting all those layers, all the petals. And then back down and out. And we're just going to keep working like this until our tail is shorter. And if you have any bits where your flower is kind of sticking out, that means we need to stitch it over there. You don't want to stitch really close to the top because you still want it to be flowery, but just around in there is a good height. So we're not missing any of our layers. And my tail's about that long. I want it to be, if you look under, this side over there. So you can see where we started and finished. I want to end up on the opposite side on the bottom of my flower. I'm just going to poke my needle in and come out on that side, like this. Then I'm going to go through those same 2 stitches, right there, and leave my tail. So now I'm going to just let it be, and I'm going to remember that I went up and out the top because I want to do the opposite with the next tail. So thread that one on your needle as well. And now our flower's already stitched together, but you can just weave this tail in a little bit. On the bottom side. Now I'm going to go up, and now we're going to go down through those stitches, like that. Now you can pull those tails, and we can do a double knot. Pull really snug. If it starts shrinking up, just relax the flower, push your petals all back down, and do a couple more knots, and then pull it tight again. Then take your tail. You could just cut them off right now if you felt like it, but I think it looks better if you just hide your tails. So I'm just going to go back up and through my flower and do the same with the other tail as well, just to hide those ends and minimize the look of that knot. Just up and out the other side. Now we can give those a little bit of a tug and snip them off, and they'll shrink right back into the middle of your flower. So now pause the video and do that for the rest of your flowers. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.